So my favorite slash least favorite thing is that now when it gets to this, I start to do this Fran Lebowitz thing. It's not bad. I mean, it definitely works for her, but thank you. That's very nice of you to pretend like you care. 2, 3, 4. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Da da ba beep ba ba ba. It's Wednesday. I'm in a hurry. I'm not really, but this will be a shorter one because there wasn't a whole lot. It's kind of a light week down at the old shop. Every single comic that I purchased today, I believe I've discussed. Like I've already talked about, and with recently, no new issues is what I'm saying. Silver Coin #1 came out today, and I did mean to buy that. It's another, or at least what I think it's another horror anthology. And this one was written by Chip Zdarsky, which is why I wanted to get it, but I forgot. I'll show it to you next week. But this week, it's just pick of the week. So I know you've all been watching with bated breath. What comic book is Jimmy going to buy next? But I've been buying a lot from Ahoy Comics, which is a really nice publisher. Started up as most publishers ought to be, by other artists and writers. And I've been really enjoying it. So I bought this one here, this trade. It's the Second Coming, Volume 1. This is, it's pretty plain premise. Jesus as a superhero. It is the creative team, except for Leonard Kirk. I don't recognize anyone's name. Yeah, and Leonard Kirk is just the inker. So it's Mark Russell and Richard Pace. Oh, they usually give him a little thing back here. Oh, and Amanda Connor did all the covers. She's great. Oh, right. Okay, so Mark Russell wrote God Is Disappointed in You, which I haven't read, but I have owned for 7 years, something like that. I think a girlfriend borrowed my copy for a long time until she broke up with me, and I said, listen, you can do what you want with me, but I want my copy of God Is Disappointed in You back. She was all too happy to indulge me in that. Oh, right, and he's written some of those. I didn't mean to make that face on camera. Is Richard Pace the other? I should have maybe looked at this before. Well, Richard Pace, he doesn't appear to have. Well, they don't list a lot of the titles that he drew, but yeah, Mark Russell is. He wrote God Is Disappointed in You and Apocrypha Now, which were both obviously religious satires that were both illustrated by Shannon Wheeler, which is why I bought them. So I haven't read them yet, so I can't say that they look good, though. I mean, it's called God Is Disappointed in You. I don't know how you could be disappointed with that title. And he also wrote, I never read these books, but a few years ago, DC Comics started publishing books starring Warner Brothers cartoons, because, and then I don't know if I think it must be that Warner Brothers must own Turner Vision or something now, because I think Warner Brothers has all the licensing for all the Hanna-Barbera characters. So they started doing one-shot issues of like Bugs Bunny and Superman, I think. And the only one I bought was Jonah Hex and Yosemite Sam. Just should be, or I don't remember. But they would take DC superheroes or characters and put them together with a Looney Tune, and hilarity ensued. I read the Jonah Hex one and I thought it was fine. And then they started doing Hanna-Barbera cartoon characters, and these were more like they did a Scooby-Doo book that took place during the apocalypse, which I think they got because Archie Comics started doing that a while ago. Archie Comics started doing this goofy thing where first it's Archie meets the Ramones, and I was like, okay. And then it was Archie meets the Punisher, and then it was Archie meets the Predator, from the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. So they're like, and it worked though. Then they did Afterlife with Archie. That's what really hit, because everybody loves zombies apparently. This was definitely at a time when zombies were still really big. And so Afterlife with Archie was really big. And I wanted to really like that book because Francesco Francavilla drew it, and his art was above reproach, as it always is. But honestly, I couldn't care less about the zombie apocalypse in Riverdale. No, I could care less, but it didn't do anything for me. And then then they kept going, and then they did the more, especially because I think as the Netflix show Sabrina. Man, I'm really going a long way to talk about a point I've already forgotten. uh, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and then they did one where Jughead was a cannibal, I believe, or a werewolf. A lot of, Jughead the Hunger. That's like, oh, that's cute, but I'm not gonna, it's not for me. But because of that, I personally anyway, draw a line from that to DC doing the same thing that they did, the Scooby-Doo one. Did Mark Russell write that one? They did a Scooby-Doo one where it took place during the apocalypse. He did not write that one. But then they did do a Flintstones one that I actually heard a lot of good things about, and I should probably read. A Flintstones one, but it was more realistic. I guess it was more the Honeymooners. I don't know. And then they did one with a Snagglepuss, which actually I might have read. Now I gotta double check that. The only one of those that I know I read for sure, the only one of the Hanna-Barbera DC books that I read for sure was the one that Garth Ennis wrote, obviously. He did, I can't remember the characters' names now. Snidely Whiplash is from Dudley Do-Right. But it was the two characters, the bad guys from Wacky Races. So Wacky Races was that old cartoon show where, I don't know, they discussed current events, obviously. And there's the two characters. Muttley was the dog, because we used to call our dog that. My best friend's mom used to call it my dog. Muttley, and whoever Muttley's, it was a very Snidely Whiplash character. So Garth Ennis wrote that, and I bought that because it was Garth Ennis. And it was better than I expected it, for something that he clearly could have just phoned in. Which he didn't, because it had war stuff in it, so obviously. So anyway, Second Coming Volume 1 is Picks of the Week. This is the one. And now Picks of the Alright, hey. So I might not even finish that trade, because I did catch up finally on all my weekly stuff, but I got a lot of other work and stuff to do now. And I've got a Man-Thing trade that I'm right in the middle of that I want to finish as well. But for one thing, I did finish this finally. String Bags hardcover, speaking of Garth Ennis. It's by Garth Ennis and P.J. Holden. This, as near as I can tell still, is an original pressing. This is like an original graphic novel, even though it's in 3 parts. It easily could have been a 6-issue series. But I'm fine with having a nice, pretty hardcover. And so the String Bag is this particular World War II era English fighter plane. And it was apparently a real piece of crap. And that definitely is something that Garth Ennis will write about. Especially when it comes to his World War II stuff. He's always writing stories about, lousy equipment, but the fine soldiers and men who worked them and, to victory. So these three are point of view characters that we follow throughout, and Ennis writes a big essay in the back explaining historically how he's very. I don't think Garth Ennis has kids. I mean, I barely have a kid. He's here a couple weeks out of the year, but there's a certain age. There's an age that most men, straight men anyway, will reach where they just become war guys. And mine is mostly Vietnam. Garth Ennis is World War II. We only have a handful. You're either a Vietnam guy or a World War II guy or a Civil War guy. Nobody's really into World War I so much. You would think with the movies and stuff. Nobody's writing about the Boer War or reading about it or anything like that. So, and then part of that is you get very technical about everything. So he had to explain. And that's the thing now, is at this point, reading war comics, especially by Garth Ennis, I just assume everything is completely accurate. Do you know why? It's because of Harvey Kurtzman. Harvey Kurtzman was, of course, the creator of Mad Magazine, but before that, he was one of the editors at EC Comics, and he was in charge of all the war books. And that was during the Korean War. And Harvey was well reputed for being an absolute stickler for detail. And for artists like Wallace Wood, or for Wallace, or for I'm his mother all of a sudden, for Wally Wood or for John Severin, that worked fine, but not everybody liked it. But I always appreciated it as a reader because I was a kid, I didn't know any better. But it was good to know. It was one of those things where, like, you know, a lot of my problems growing up with the adult world was how full of shit everybody was. So when I had an adult say, hey, these are all historically accurate representations of this materiel and uniform, etc., and I go, okay, finally, somebody's given to me straight. It's got to be in funny books. But that works for me. Also, last week, I read Witchblood #1. This was really fun, beyond just the Dazzler cover. It's not, like, on paper, it doesn't sound like much. You got this young lady here who is a witch, and I believe this other lady is also, like, a more experienced one, and then they're fighting vampires. Doesn't sound like much on the surface, but when you read it, it's just a lot more fun. I don't know how else to say it. I don't really have much more to say on that one. Speaking of, I was mentioning Man-Thing earlier, I also read Avengers Curse of the Man-Thing #1. This was very, very merry. Very merry. It was very merry. Merry Christmas, everybody. I hope Santa brings you Avengers Curse of the Man-Thing #1. So this was a lot of, I mean, I'm a huge fan of that character, the Man-Thing in general. I find that I kind of prefer the Gerber era, obviously. Steve Gerber was did he create Man-Thing? I'm pretty sure he created Man-Thing. And all of those stories were set in the Florida swamps. And I kind of prefer my Man-Thing stories to say that. They don't have to, but this one, so this story is going to be a much bigger thing. So the Harrower has arrived and is weaponized Man-Thing, basically. And she's a new villain. She is apparently connected to the Horticulture, who are also relatively new villains in the X-Men books. So the Harrower has captured the Man-Thing, and she has, like I say, weaponized him using magic and science to create these spores that are spreading over the world and are essentially turning people into Man-Things. So Captain America gets caught by one of these things, and he ends up in some other the Harrower's whole thing is fear. So Captain America has to fight his greatest fears, which are all the lesser Captain Americas who have followed him. But he's Captain America, so it's no problem. And then I didn't mean to spoil that. And then but then after that, he's like, oh, there's another guy here who I don't know. And the guy goes, oh, I'm Ted Sallis. I'm the goddamn Man-Thing. I haven't said anything since 1971. So I'm like, oh, okay. Well, now I'm listening. Because now this seems like it's going to be less a Man-Thing story and more a Ted Sallis story. And Ted Sallis, thumbnail, was a scientist working on a super soldier serum in the swamps of Florida to get away from it all. AIM, I believe it was, or Hydra, one of the evil agencies, attacked, tried to get his work from him, and he ran and was shot. But he injected the serum that he had been working on into himself. He gets shot. His car crashes into the swamp, and he more or less becomes one with the swamp. Very similar to Swamp Thing's origins, and believe it or don't, completely just parallel thinking. Those two characters came out too close to each other for one to have come first. Do you know what I mean? Because this was back in the day where you had to wait 3 months for something. Anyway. But yeah, so now Ted's in this. And this isn't the first, I mean, there was a really good, I don't count the R.L. Stine mini, but there was a good storyline in the Thunderbolts where Jeff Parker was writing it, and he wrote it to where Man-Thing could talk and reason. But it was really just for that book. Like, it worked. There was a logic to it. There was a reason, and then it went back to being normal. I think it's when, I don't remember, to be honest with you. But I'm just very excited for more Man-Thing stories. Because they've been collecting all of Steve Gerber's run in order. And so I bought volume 2 of that. He's very nice. A little pricey trades, but very nice, the way Marvel's been doing them for a while now. And hopefully I can yammer at you about that next week. Also, I read Beta Ray Bill number. All right, go ahead and start rolling. Beta Ray Bill #1. Again, a delightful time. The only moment reading this book where I was like, ugh, is that it still ties very heavily into King in Black, which I haven't been following very closely, as you can, which I missed it before. Fin Fang Foom here, the giant dragon, he whose back scrapes the sky. He's been, you can tell by the curlicue here, he's been taken over by Null, the symbiote god, and so this issue starts where King in Black ends, even though King in Black's not really over yet. But it's great. Daniel Warren Johnson is an incredible artist. The story's fun. It's Bill. Beta Ray Bill has been kind of left in charge of Asgard. He's the god of war now. That Tyr, the Norse god of war, has been dead for a few years now. And so Beta Ray Bill became the new Asgardian god of war once Thor became king of Asgard. And Bill is feeling a little out of place because he's not Asgardian, and so he's there to protect Asgard from Null, and then Thor shows up and steals his thunder, and then so at the end of this issue, Bill's like, you know what, I'm gonna pull Norrin Rad and just go out in the spaceways there, and chill for a while. So I'm super excited, and the art is amazing. In fact, I just saw I think it was yesterday on Instagram, a guy that I follow. I follow mostly comic book accounts on Instagram. He had gotten Daniel Warren Johnson to do a sketch of there's the first appearance of Beta Ray Bill was Thor. Oh, I don't remember the number at all, but where he's smashing his hammer through the logo, and so of the Thor logo that Walt Simonson drew. And so this guy got Daniel Warren Johnson to recreate that cover, but it says Beta Ray Bill instead, and he's still smashing through it. But I was like, oh my god, it was so good. Good, I'm glad I shared that with you. Picks of last week. I meant to not go that long, and I still went almost 20 minutes. I thought this was going to be 6 minutes tops. Oh well. Well, that's it for this week, everybody. And as I always say every single week, have a good one.